Oh, fuck. Sorry, but damn. People are just too stupid. Yeah, it's one of these kind of people. So I'll get to that. And then half a day made it just, they're stupid everywhere. And then this John Yen guy, who I generally like, but if I was on my other channel, I would just block him. So yeah, just fuck off for a while, John. You're too stupid. You're just too fucking stupid. So anyway, this is a comment he made on this contest video. Okay. Good video. No point in saying that. One point, and I noticed you have mentioned this a few times. Yeah, I have. The poor will be with you always. Yeah, that's what Jesus said. Okay, as a response to Judas saying, hey, why are you wasting $40, or whatever the number would be, on oil for your frickin' feet? I gave up everything I own. I left my wife, my family, to follow you to save the world, and you're wasting the money on your fucking feet. And Jesus' answer was, the poor will be with you always. I'm special. That's all Jesus said. I'm special. That's all he said. I'm not the blight. I'm special. I'm not the poor. Yeah, this has to be read in context. No, there's no. Yes, and how did I hurt the context? That's what he said. He didn't say the poor have always been with you, which would have been almost reasonable. But no, he said the poor will be with you always. You know, there's no way to make that into a optimistic statement about the future. So obviously Jesus already figured he was going to fail dismally. That Judas gave up everything for nothing because they weren't going to go fix the world. They weren't going to go save the poor from their poverty. Of an overall narrative account, and it isn't the best rendering of the scripture either. Well, you later on will tell me what the best rendering is, which says exactly what I was saying. So, yeah, fuck you. The purpose of the Messiah in the tale wasn't to fix the problems there and then. Well, that's not the argument. Always. The word is always, jackass. That's the future, fuckhead. That's the whole point of me bringing it up, is that this isn't a very good statement for a goddamn savior to be making. What he should be saying is, look, you know, if you people go along with this thing, I have a deal with God, and maybe I'll even undo Eve's sin. And then women won't have pain in childbirth anymore, and we'll all go back to the garden. Yeah. Maybe I'll get us out of this thing where let's persecute all the children of mankind because two people ate a fucking apple. That's the idiotic premise of this idiotic fucking religion, and you're going to tell me that I'm being too hard on it? That I'm taking it too literally or something? Fuck you! There and then. It was to help prepare the way for his Father's kingdom. Yes, always. The poor will be with you always. Which was set to return at a future point in time. Thus he taught his followers, thy kingdom come. Yeah, he said a lot of shit. I'm not of this world. We're not of this world. Yeah, he said a lot of crap. That was just fucking crap. Because people live in this world. People get cancer in this world, okay? People do things because they have desire in this world. And it seems like Jesus can't pass the test. He's in this world. He's feeling the pain. And what is he doing? He's wasting $40 on his fucking feet. What exactly is the difference between Jesus saying, let's waste $40 on my feet, and some guy being compelled to say, I want to fuck that hooker? What exactly is the fucking difference? He succumbed to his desire, the same crime that humans are being persecuted by fucking God for. Succumbing to their desire. Fuck you again. Thus he taught his followers, thy kingdom come, and to pray for this as a final solution. Well, I don't see where Jesus was doing much of that shit, so that's just bullshit. And miseries upon earth. A solution to the woes. No, he says, mine is the way. Okay? He said, follow me, and I'm gonna give you this fixing of the poor. But obviously he didn't mean it, because he wasn't going to fix. The meek weren't going to inherit the fucking earth. He might as well have just said the meek will be with you always. In the fucking sewer, eating turds. Jesus' stay was temporary, according to the tale. Yeah, he was there for a short while, and he couldn't even do it. He couldn't play the human game without rationalizing sin. He did the sin of indulgence, the sin of gratuitous waste on his fucking feet, right? Having the whore oil his feet with her hair. With the money hard earned by the tribe of no-housers going door to door, the precious, valuable resources they work daily trying to collect, and he just pissed it away on his fucking feet. And you're going to rationalize it and justify his sin in the context of a God who has slaughtered women, slaughtered humankind, because they ate an apple from a tree called knowledge. Fuck you. Jesus' day was temporary, according to the tale. And when you consider this and look at better rendering of the Greek, oh, whatever, you will always have the poor among you. Well, gee, that is so different. Gee, you will always, again, the word always, have the poor among you. That's just such a different statement, isn't it? But you will not always have me. Well, what does that mean? Because you're here, you're a privileged character, you're better than the poor, you're better than the women blighted by the pain in childbirth, or the issuing of her issue. Another sin, another penalty imposed by God for Eve's sin. Another child woman punished because the parent committed a crime. And this asshole comes onto earth and says, but you will not always have me. Even though he's lived longer than most people get a chance to live. He certainly lived longer than all the kids killed by fucking infections and blights and diseases. And this arrogant asshole who only has to be alive once and then go back to his wonderful kingdom, right? Who's actually seen the goddamn pearly gates. He's actually sit in the soft, comfy chair. He can't take it. He can't put up with it without being a self-indulgent fuck. And you're telling me this I'm supposed to read it any other way, you stupid cunt? No, it's a stupid story. It's insane that people buy this crap. Who wants this fucking God? I've said this since I was 6 years old, right? Why the fuck do I want to be obedient to this motherfucking cunt of a God who punishes kids because their parents fucking jaywalked? Why the fuck would I want to be a servant to that son of a bitch? It now makes sense to me. He meant during their lifetime. Well, I guess the word always, and you don't understand the word always, do you? No, I guess that's what you don't understand, John. Fuck you. God, I can't stand these people making excuses for fucking idiotic fables. And they're idiotic. They're worse than Hansel and Gretel in the sense they're just fucking insane. Well, let's eat gingerbread shit, and let's cook witches, and let's do this. Fuck you! This is goddamn idiotic. So anyway. And this is goddamn idiotic. So we'll start about, he's just jibber-jabbing in the beginning. I can't, I mean, every sentence has a statement in it that you could say, what are you talking about? How can you misparaphrase reality so grotesquely?
That in no way calls into question or invalidates certain kinds of religious positions, especially depending upon how the religious position is articulated.
Right. So somehow, he's saying that number one, he's not interested in this argument. What's the truth? And that somehow there's some sort of compatibility between evolution, billions of years of organisms torturing each other, the mass murder of babies throughout nature, 9 out of 10, mass murdered, routinely. Yeah, there's no incompatibility. Fuck you.
And I've, I guess, not been interested, and I think this is maybe where the real difference is. I'm not interested in a scientific proof or in a scientific evidence or in a philosophical proof that would somehow lead someone either from theism to atheism or...
Well, I just don't understand, all right? I mean, all theisms are based on some inane, insane premise that some intelligence said, let's torture things for billions of years. Let's grind them up in an idiotic competition where the good deserved never has anything to do with it, just about. Right? This isn't some sort of Olympic Games where everybody's watching and making sure no one gets tripped or kicked in the nuts or some other kind of bullshit. Nature cheats all over the fucking place. It's big giant teeth of cheating. Your good luck, good fortune. Nothing. The rock falls on your fucking head. A tree falls on you. I mean, this is just bullshit to sit there and talk to me about this thing being somehow, there's no difference between a theory that says it's all intentional and a theory that says we're just in a big chaos engine getting ground up in a stupid mechanism that just basically says whatever. That's that. Yeah, the whatever theory versus the intelligent design theory. Yeah, right. Unintelligent design versus intelligent design. Those two things are compatible. And this in another, fuck you, Indifferent Sky. Great video, thank you. No, I'm halfway through this video. This is not a great video. This is a fucking insane, inane video. God, people are just so unreliable. Just watch this happen. You're saying, how could they understand anything if they can't understand this is absolute crap? Jesus saying the poor will be with you is absolute crap. As a response to Judas. It's absolute crap. And if you can't admit that, then you're just too fucking stupid.
Atheism to theism. I'm not holding out for a belief in something like a conclusive proof for or against the existence of what one would mean by God.
Well, I just don't see. You've obviously proved it enough to yourself. So why are you saying I'm not holding out? You're perfectly satisfied that there's no evidence for any supernatural or for any guiding intelligence beyond what you might call pattern or some other kind of crap. Order. Yeah, that's the word he uses. Order, as opposed to disorder. So yes, the universe ends up being somehow ordered. Yeah, right. The suns blow up, cosmic rays go shooting through space that blow up planets and whole galaxies and shit. And yeah, we'll call that order because, well, I took a picture of it. It didn't do anything during that time I was taking the picture. It didn't murder my children, so therefore it's ordered.
Oh, fuck. And from my own sense, there will never be scientific evidence for the origin of life.
Well, look, the origin of life isn't what you should have said, okay? The origin of the material universe, okay, you could argue that we're just probably never going to be able to take our little magnifying glass and follow the footsteps to what happened before that. There's going to be an event that's going to be just too hard to dissect because there's not going to be any fingerprints leading to the, they're going to be washed away by the ocean and there's no footprints. You can't follow it anymore. No more trail. But the trail deductively, logically, yes, you can understand that. You can understand that, perfection is kind of a complex idea. So the fact that the universe would not be perfect, perfection is complex. So yes, the absence of perfection seems like that might be the default. That's why we exist, is because, perfection does probably require something to have a plan. And something without a plan wouldn't do perfection. So you can make deductive arguments to say, well, something versus nothing, it doesn't really matter. There has to be something. Even nothing is something. So it gets a little gnarly. And I guess also scientifically, what somebody could argue is that time is the only thing making this seem like something. That's it. That time is what's created when you make things spin around in circles. The photons aren't shooting away, so they're spinning in circles, and that's creating time. That's it.
Like, and by that I mean you're not going to have sufficient evidence of why there is something rather than nothing. It's just not a scientific question.
Well, I think it is a scientific question. You just, as you could say, stated, we're just not going to be able to get sufficient evidence to draw some picture of the exact blah 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 blah. We can only speculate on blah blah blah. I mean, the speculation's all going to be perfectly within the confines of what this is possible. So the idea that the universe could just be a piece of glass and it breaks, and when it breaks into a zillion little photons, and then they do this little thing for a while, and then they just dissipate into nothing. Well, could be. It's going to be something like that. That's what we can say scientifically. We can say that the answer is going to fall into the realm of this. It's not going to fall into the realm of a 7-headed 4-zillion-ton pig barfed the universe. That's not going to be the answer.
There are ways that people could try to speculate about the origin.
Right, and we already have those speculations that we know are just nonsense. They're just made up stories. They just invented them like I just invented the 7-headed pig that barfed up the universe. They just did exactly what I just did. That's all they are. They're just made up stories. There's not one shred of reasoning or deduction or evidence behind the conclusion that a God created it. It's just a made up story. There's no explanation for where the magical God came from or what the magical God was doing forever, because he never was birthed by something. Nothing evolved the God.
About the origin of cosmos, and people can maybe try to do things like dating the Big Bang, but where all this stuff came from, why it's here, it will never, ever, ever be known.
Well, I think that's just a little too much of a statement. I think we're going to know some of it. I think we know it now deductively. Like I said, we can put it in a basket, of reasonable. There's a reasonable basket and there's an unreasonable basket. And we can definitely make distinctions between what ideas are in the unreasonable basket and what ideas are in the reasonable basket. And I think it's pretty damn sure, okay, that it's unreasonable to have an answer that doesn't answer the question. And God doesn't answer that question. God does not answer the question of why there's something. Because then you'd have to ask the question, well, how the fuck did God get here? I mean, it just doesn't answer the question.
I think that some people don't want to believe that. I think, on the other hand, I don't think that anyone is ever going to wake up dead and somehow get the answer to life. It's not like you're going to get to the...
Well, gee, I'm glad, as a grown man, you could figure out that the floating zombie idea was kind of silly. Yeah, okay, so as a guy who's actually a professor, you figured out that your identity, your consciousness, takes place in a gooey, living brain, and that when that brain ceases to live, like unlike digital media, unlike a hard drive or a flash drive or solid state memory or any of those things, when these neurons die, the information held in them goes with it. The information is lost. It is non-existent. It no longer is. And that is the truth of our existence, that our existence ends as a personality, as an identity, as a knower of things, as a talker of things, as a feeler of things, as anything of anything, when the brain dies. And yeah, you figured that out because, yeah, you've heard a few stories about when, steel rods go through people's heads, all of a sudden their whole identity changes. Yeah, that's because their brain is them. And when the brain is dead, they're dead. Oh, okay, you figured that out. Great.
Pearly gates upon death, and you now figure out what all this was about, where it came from, what, which religion was true, yada yada.
Yeah, no, you figure out that they're all just silly, preposterously aged, silly fucking stories. And that we shouldn't even be having, an intelligent person should not even have to respond. It's so silly. It's so nonsensical. It's like allowing Einstein to be interrogated by a 3-year-old going lollipop, lollipop.
None of that. No, I think all of that is just, it's nonsense. I think maybe the way that I was...
Yeah, well, why can't you just say that? Why all this crap said earlier? Why not just say religion is nonsense? That's what it is. It's nonsense. All of it is nonsense.
Partly positioned into this, which was creating some of the confusion, is that I have tried to suggest, and I would still maintain this, that life couldn't have not been.
Yes, which is saying absolutely nothing. Yes, we are. Okay, wow, that's brilliant. We are. Okay, got it. Yeah, I figured that out myself also.
Now, by that I mean life didn't choose itself. That the orderliness of the cosmos...
Well, there we go. The orderliness of the cosmos. So that's the new God, is the orderliness. So God doesn't have to be intelligent. It doesn't have to be, it just has to be sort of consistent and have the same kind of rules. So even if it's a conveyor belt into a blender, it's orderly, and so it's reasonable and sensible to just keep it running. Run.
But, and by the orderliness, there are lots of different things that we could get at, but at the very least, it has to do with the regular patterns that have emerged through...
Okay, regular patterns. So this isn't too bad. And he almost says the word condensation. He almost says it. Yeah, just condensation. It's drips. And then the drips get moldy, and then the mold wake up one day and starts making up stories about God.
Through gravitational forces, the one-directional time flow, the very possibility of accretions in physical processes and chemical processes that would precipitate out forms of life. Now,
accretions that precipitate out forms of life. I mean, that's kind of a silly way to say it. I mean, I don't know exactly what you're saying there, right? You could take that a lot of funny ways. But anyway, life isn't just extruded out of the machinery of the universe. So this is where he just goes, he wants to imply that the machinery somehow is going somewhere or making something. And most of the universe is not making anything but rocks. It's making rocks.
Does one have to say that there de facto is not a creator God? Now, I personally, I'm not interested in the question.
Yeah, I just don't see how that's possible, frankly. And the only way you're not interested in the question is somehow you think religion is somehow harmless. That it doesn't do profound and catastrophic intellectual and psychological damage. That's the only way you could be not interested in the question. It has totally owned the human race for centuries. We can point out all the horrific waste that has been created by the bigotries built into these fables. To say it's not an interesting question, I think, is just you're not interested in the debate. I can't take you seriously.
I think it's useless. It's meaningless. I don't think you need a creator God. I don't think.
Right. Well, saying they don't need, to be religious. I mean, you're just making the argument, right? So what you're really saying is I don't want to have to do this, repairing your idiocy. But you're implying that it's okay. You can be religious. So you can't do both. You can't say it's okay to be religious and then say, gee, you don't need it, and frankly, you're not going to get anything right with it. So you're just saying two different things.
There needs to be one at all. That all you need to postulate is an orderliness.
Again, who cares about this need shit, right? I mean, if you're saying need because it's consistent with the evidence and it is more likely to make you somebody dealing with reality, not dealing with your fantasies, yes, you want to live in the real world so that your interaction is coherent to the problems in the real world, the real problems in the real world. That's the objective, and you're not going to be able to do that if you have a deluded notion of what the real world is. That's right. Why don't you just say that?
The cosmos that naturally precipitates life. Now,
there, see, the cosmos, you hear that? It's like, another way of saying that is the universe rains life. No, it doesn't rain life. It rains rocks all over the place. All kinds of temperature rocks. But there is no raining of the life. Life is a preposterously bizarre event. Contingent on preposterously unusual events, things that only happen once in trillions of permutations. Come on.
Okay, so here's where part of the haggle comes out, is what exactly does one mean by life? Now, I think there was some...
I said, I don't know why this would be a haggle. Can't we just say DNA molecule replicating? That's a life form? Yeah, I think we can do that.
People who posted, I think it was Mary, who had posted something on one of my previous videos about, bacteria that feed directly on electrons, and they found a couple now. And
yeah, well, whatever. We all are feeding on electrons. Technically, we're feeding on photons. And the fact that you can have a shortcut, expedited process. My computer feeds on electrons. It's fed by electrons. It functions based on electrons running through it. Probably photons, but let's not argue it. So what? Yeah, who cares?
okay, this would get very interesting. Now, I agree.
I see. Now, this question you think is interesting. What we eat, you think is somehow interesting. I mean, we know it's energy. Does it really matter what form it's in? I mean, beyond the whole eating other sentient creatures things, I'm not making that argument. I'm just saying, well, what's the difference? It's energy. We feed on energy because we need energy to be animated, not complicated. It has nothing to do with what is or is not a life form. What things eat doesn't have anything to do with whether they're alive or not.
What we mean by life gets very tricky.
I'm sorry, it doesn't. It's a replicating DNA molecule. You must have heard of DNA.
My video too, where I was talking about love is sugar and love is plastic, I was sort of putting a lot on saccharides and on sugars.
Yeah, whatever. You could put a lot on penises and vaginas. You can simplify the drawing of what the mechanism. All right, but yeah, it's a consuming device and a reproducing device. That's what it does. It consumes so it can reproduce. Period. It consumes to reproduce. You have to consume to reproduce. You can't just reproduce without consuming. You have to make enough of you to split you. Or obviously it wouldn't, it's like, if you chop up the one thing and it's not big enough to make two out of, then you're not going to have two.
Related to life, and yet we do find cases, very interesting cases of, this is just what we've discovered here on the planet, right? We discovered...
So again, the implication that this is just what's on Earth. There's all kinds of precipitation of life happening all over the universe. It's all just raining all over the place. Even though all the evidence points to life only happening one time on this planet, even though there's dead body parts all over the place, it's just covered with 2 feet of dead parts. 2 feet thick across the surface of the earth of dead parts. And yet no other living thing popped out of all that DNA humus. And yet it's raining throughout the universe. It's just raining life.
Certain forms of living bacteria that feed directly upon electrons. Now that really challenges some people's definitions of life.
I don't know how that's possible. The only people's definition it could challenge is somebody who's an idiot. Sorry, but that's the truth, right? It doesn't challenge anybody who's read any biology or chemistry or physics. It certainly doesn't challenge their understanding of what a life form is. Who cares what it eats?
And it raises very interesting questions about, could there be life elsewhere, and what exactly could it look like?
No, it doesn't raise any of those questions. A bacteria that ate banana peels. How would this mean that there's life in the universe all over the place? This is just stupid. Again, we all eat electrons. The whole point of the chemistry is to make electrons jump levels and do all that stuff. That's what the whole chemical, that's what your sugars do. Okay, that's what energy is the thing that has more electrons crashes into the thing with less electrons and gives it some fucking electrons. That's how we're living here, is that we're eating cells full of electrons, and those electrons bang into our low electron molecules. We eat molecules, I'm sorry. And then those molecules exchange the electrons.
Could there be bacteria that feed directly on photons within the middle of a sun? I mean,
I can think of 7-headed pigs or 14, maybe a 14-headed pig in the center of the sun eating photons. Yeah, you can make up all kinds of crap, but it's crap. And we do have science that will indicate or demonstrate that is crap, because not even gold can survive the center of the sun. Not even lots of things would be destroyed by the radioactive intensity of the heat and pressure in the center of the sun. So nothing is going to survive there, and certainly nothing's going to be created there that's complex. If even simple things can't survive there, then I guess you could argue your theory is probably crack shit nonsense. I mean, if a carbon molecule can't even survive in there, you could throw the carbon molecule in first. Why don't we have that test? Well, if a carbon molecule can't survive, then let's not put God there. Let's not put the magic 7-headed pig there, because it can't happen. Can't we say that? It can't happen.
I don't know how we would test that.
Well, there's lots of ways to test it, theoretically and practically. So, yeah, go ahead, shoot shit into the sun and see how complex it stays. All right, take a toaster, let's shoot it into the sun, and let's see if it stays a toaster, or if it becomes something a little simpler.
What that would mean, but I think it definitely would predate life. Life could potentially be much older than what we find here just on this planet.
Whatever that means, right? So the exact same thing happened. A DNA molecule was created. It replicated on some other planet. The exact same thing happens all the time, blah, 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 blah. No evidence of any of this. No evidence, like I said, of this planet's been around for 5-6 billion years. Let's say 4 billion years with DNA floating around on it. And no other manifestation of the molecule. No other occurrence of the magic.
Just what, the 4 or 5 billion years. Now, what's interesting here is that I think it also, when you look to the origin of air and of oxygen, and I'm going to talk.
Oh, fuck. Yeah. This isn't going to go anywhere good, right? Yeah, no. I should just jump over this shit. Well, let's just do it.
More about that here in a second when I get to the David Abram. But air and oxygen, the atmosphere around us, is very interesting. In some sense, this is the origin of the spiritual. That the air is the felt real, but it's so immaterial. Now we can, with modern science, determine the materials of air, but it's wholly invisible. It's
Yeah, right. So let's just concede that with science we know it's not this magical shit. So, but let's just pretend we don't know that and just make more rationalizations for why we should somehow retain the ignorant notions of magical air. So again, yes, religion is nonsense, but let's placate it and let's jump in the old religious bucket whenever possible. Let's run away from the explicit description of the reality and let's go play in the silly water. Great. That somebody else is peeing in, which makes it even more sensible, right? I'm sure the porpoises are like, oh yes, the water is magical. He just pooped in it. Yeah, that guy just pooped in my fucking water. I have to breathe his poop.
it was
Well, they don't really breathe underwater, so okay, let's, the fishes can complain, right? They're like, holy shit, we're shitting in our drinking water. But the porpoises, at least they can breathe the air. But they have to drink the water, and it's full of poo.
for thousands and thousands of years. Oral peoples experienced
Oral peoples. This is just, this is just, you're just like, how can somebody fall for this shit? Oral peoples. I mean, you're just, what, you think it really matters whether you read a book or somebody tells you the story? Does it really matter? They're both interesting ways of absorbing an image or a metaphor. Who cares? Oh, this is just pathetic.
the winds and the air around them as a spiritual force, as a spiritual presence.
Right, because they were ignorant. Could you just add that somewhere? They drew ignorant conclusions because they didn't have any scientific knowledge of the reality, so they drew ignorant conclusions about what made the universe work. Fine. The world work. Their oxygen work. The air work. So yeah, they drew ignorant conclusions that are nonsensical and stupid, and somehow we should put those on a totem pole and hug them every day. We should take the ignorant notions, totemize them, make them in the most durable cement we can make. Cement you can actually shoot into the sun and it'll survive. Let's make them out of the hardest cement we can find, and just embrace them forever and rub up against them. Rub up against stupid, idiotic notions. Great.
And it could be felt very directly. It was very tangible in some way, and it was
Yeah, it still is. So, big deal.
very real and yet invisible. Now, if you ask about it, the oral peoples would say, well, the air is our ancestors. The air are our ancestors.
Farting in your direction. Yeah, that's what they do. Come on. I mean, why do this? Why don't you just take every fairy tale ever composed by human beings and read every one of them to us? Yes, why don't we just all waste our time talking about ignorant, silly conclusions drawn by ignorant, silly people? Oh, fun, fun, fun. Teletubby, anybody? I mean, Teletubby is more intelligent than that.
As are the wind and the trees and the rain, and it's interesting because in some way modern science would show, that in many ways is very true, that the particular kind of environment that we now live in, and by that I mean what happened to the atmosphere, that it is the air that we now share with one another, that in oral peoples in face-to-face context was shared between them and felt to blow around them, and it engulfed them and surrounded them. That is really the product of their ancestors. I mean, in a direct physical sense, that earliest forms of life, forms of bacteria, have, they've been able to eat and gobble down sulfuric acid and sulfur gases, hydrochloric acid, all.
Yes, and why? Oh, that's right, because that was the early mechanism of evolution. That's how ordered the system is. See, the system has so much order in it that the replicating devices took over the entire planet and soiled it with their poo-poo. And then, essentially, they had to evolve to eat the shit. They made so much shit that they had, if they were going to continue to survive as a molecule, the molecule had to figure out how to eat shit, because that's all there was now, was shit everywhere. So that's part of your order. That's right. We soil the environment, then we eat the soil. And then we soil it again and eat that soil.
All kinds of other things that are utterly toxic, and they've been able to produce.
There's not too many things eating stuff that's utterly toxic, by the way. That's, it's not too many.
I guess through billions, ongoingly, years, the environment that we're now able to live in. And even,
yeah, right. We're allowed to live in. And so, yeah, most of this shit happened when we were fish, for fuck's sake. Okay? So this doesn't have too much to do with our lives.
In the human system, right, you have the aerobic and anaerobic cellular processes, right? And that it shows how even oxygen is quite toxic, but we have adapted to this environment.
Right. We adapted before we were fish. So that now you're going back to before we were even fish. So it's not exactly we, is it? No, it's not really we.
Largely because of bacteria, and I think...
Yes, that's what life was based on first, those little tiny cells, and then little tiny cells got into big groups, and they became thugs, and the gangs swept over things and consumed them. And he's going to get into language and stuff, which I probably won't have time for, and get into all this other kind of bullshit as if language and alphabeticy and all this kind of nonsense, and all that has to do with the fact that there's no Native American languages that are survived, right? Because the Europeans came over here and they wiped them all out. And that's all that happened throughout human history. So there's lots of ways people communicated. There was lots of languages, and most of them got exterminated. That's the way humans work. They exterminate things.
This is the angle that I've tried to go in many places. That the more interesting question for me...
I mean, it's time for them to exterminate themselves.
...is not... Is there a creator God? Will we ever find evidence of life after death? Any of that kind of stuff. Look, I don't think that...
Yeah, right. There's fables, and then there's science. Why don't you just say that? There's reasonable deductions, and then there's unreasonable faith. There's... but have a conversation about this idea that there's a thing called rational interpretation. There's logical interpretation. And that people who are believing in this nonsense are violating logic and reason. They're saying, I don't care what the evidence is. That should bother you.
When you're dead, you go back to where you were before you were born.
Well, that's your theory. That's what you say. But my mommy told me different. I mean, you're not making an argument. So again, you're saying, I don't want to make the argument, but I do want to make the declarations. Oh, okay, I get that. Yeah, I would really love to just make declarations and not have to defend them with arguments, but I have to defend what I say with arguments. When I say life is essentially consumption, reproduction, cannibalism, and addiction, it's all bad. It's all just a, make a mess, clean up half of it. Yeah, I have to make arguments explaining why that metaphor works. Well, that's not even a good example, because those metaphors are not really metaphors, they're actually explicit statements. They're part of the evidentiary proof. But yeah, if I make a statement that life fails, I can just say, okay, life fails. It's insufficiently sufficient. There, I'll just say it. Life is insufficiently sufficient. And I don't have to defend it. I mean, I'm just saying that the real world we live in, Professor Anton, people believe this shit. And you can't just say, don't believe in it. You have to tell them why it's wrong. And you have to have the balls to say why it's wrong. And it's wrong is because it's made up nonsense. And it was made up in a context of ignorance. That's what you have to... You actually have to admit that our ancestors were ignorant. which somehow it seems like you don't want to say those words. You don't want to say people 1,000 years ago were preposterously ignorant. And that's your religion.
You're not going to wake up dead. They're not going to have memories of your life. If anything, you just dissipate back into the organism.
You don't dissipate. You don't do any of that shit. Okay? You fall apart. And the order that was your identity is disintegrated. Like a Ferris wheel. If I hit it right and it breaks into all the little pieces of metal, it's no longer a Ferris wheel. It doesn't dissipate into anything. It doesn't flow through anything. It doesn't do any of that shit. It just breaks into parts that have no connection to each other beyond the random falling of the sticks.
Ground from which you have emerged. But the problem is that people don't know who they are. They don't know how they're related to everything else.
Well, I don't even know what that means by your theory. I would say your problem is that's also your problem. So I guess I would argue that all of you are batshit insane instead of recognizing the true context of your existence, what you are. Not who you are, what you are. Alright? And you're just a manifestation of a biological process that has as its core nothing to do with deserve or compassion or decency or justice or any of the good words we have. Nature doesn't even come close to being able to spell them correctly. They're not part of the vocabulary of the machinery that created us. And that's what we are. We're the bastard child of Satan and Hitler.
Haven't really thought about the mystery of the self-aware cosmos, the cosmos that...
The self-aware cosmos, yeah. So, okay, so because a tree grows in Brooklyn, or whatever this guy is saying, so the cosmos is something because we're something. And the cosmos made us, so therefore the cosmos is on a mission, and it's just circular logic. The cosmos justifies us, we justify the cosmos, therefore it's all okay. So it's just two criminals saying, I'll give you a buy on your rape if you give me a buy on my embezzlement. Yeah, great. You've both justified each other. Fine.
Naturally precipitates life, and how...
Naturally precipitates life. There we go again. So this is the reign of the universe, is this life thing. It's not rocks. No, it's life. And life is what? Most of it. Oh, that's right. Consumption and reproduction. Cannibalism, addiction. Most of it isn't even doing the addiction thing. It's just doing the cannibalizing thing. It's a senseless grinder to create the silly one winner, 1 million losers. Fine. It's a silly lottery. The silliest lottery ever invented. No prize. Just cancer for everybody.
The human is... it's only part of who you really are.
Whatever that means. Yes, I would agree. Recognizing the history of your existence in the sense of the origins through evolution. Recognizing that you're sharing the planet not only with other humans but with other mammals and with other animals that also have neurology full of sensitive nerve endings. Foreskins everywhere.
Right, that most of who I am, it isn't this separated off exclusively human that
Yeah, whatever. Well, that doesn't make much sense, right? Because most of what I am is a package of desires and sensations. That's what I would call the I. I'm really quite unaware of the billions of cells doing their little cellular thing. It's really quite unrelated to anything I would call me. My heart is beating every day. Billions of cells, billions of interactions, all kinds of shit happen. I'm totally unaware of any of that crap, so that's really not me.
Most of who I am, it needs to be recovered and appreciated and deeply felt of.
Yeah, whatever that means too. Most of what you are is a byproduct of a silly, idiotic, inane, insane system for which there have been zillions of tortured sentient brains throughout its history. It's cost a huge and preposterously high price, and what are we doing to honor that price? Singing and dancing. All for a goddamn Saturday night theater. Yeah, so you tortured people to build a cheap theater. You would do that? I mean, let's say you had to, torture 1,000 people to put up a pornitarium. Would you do it? Because that's all this is.
All of the more than human that one is.
More than human. So the fact that, I mean, even that, even again, this playing with the words, more than human, implying, okay, that the stuff we're made of isn't less than human. No, the fact is the history is less than human. The stuff we're made of is less than human. Yeah. The context is that it's a lot of less than human.
Connection.
And certainly less than science and less than the best of human. Most of it's less than the best of human.
To the larger world all around one, including the bacteria that make one's life possible.
Yeah, whatever. Let's all go out and shake their hand and give them a rub their belly. I'm sorry. I'm not going to applaud a bloodbath and say, gee, great work. Glad you slaughtered and tortured zillions to create me. Thank you so much. Fuck you.
And so, to me, the spiritual questions, they're not epistemological. They're not about answering in a scientific or philosophical way.
Well, look, whatever. The spiritual is related to these religious theories, and these religious theories have epistemology all over the place. They're all stories about what reality is, that this is a reality, that this is how it really works, that Eve did sin, and therefore we're all punished, and therefore blah, 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 blah. That's what they're made out of, Professor. They're not made out of some... I sit in the sun, I get a warmy feeling. Ooh. No, that's not what most spirituality is. Most spirituality is an ignorant, moronic, silly theory of existence.
With a rigorous argument, do you have, justified belief? Do you have justified true beliefs? Do you have adequate scientific evidence for the claims you're making? No, it has to do with felt.
Whatever. Yeah, I think that's what the point is, okay? That really, people who don't have adequate evidence should be told to shut the fuck up.
Experiences of the mystery of the cosmos. And again, I don't think there's going to be a religion.
The mysteries of the cosmos, meaning the mystery of, why is there something instead of nothing? Because, most of the other mysteries we nailed already. So, there's not too many mysteries left. The mysteries of the cosmos is just a pile of shit. It is, as you described, in the sense, it's precipitation. It's just condensation. It's a little bit of complexity raining out of the opportunity, and that's it. But there's nothing else happening here.
Just answer at the end. And there's not going to be a scientific answer ultimately about why there is something rather than nothing. And about
well, again, so the one question that couldn't be more irrelevant, I mean, we already know it exists, so who the fuck cares why? I mean, how is the why going to do you any good? You show up at a car accident, there's people burning in the car, and you're going to sit there, well, why did this happen? Why did that happen? Why is this the way it is? Who cares? We know how it is. We know what evolution is. We know how insane as a creation process this is. Let's torture shit to make stuff. I mean, we know that's not a good idea. I mean, just logically, you can just look at that statement. Let's torture shit to make stuff. I mean, we know that wouldn't be something that everybody rallies around and says, gee, that's a great idea. Let's torture shit to make stuff. Or torture stuff to make shit. Yeah, that's probably the better way. Let's torture stuff to make shit. Yeah, sorry. Why would I care about why in that context?
Why part of that something is self-aware.
Whatever. Why something is self-aware. We do know that. We have the answer to these questions. We know why we are conscious is because it was a good tool in the battle for survival. That animals that could do this motivating thinking thing and strategizing and scheming. A scheming device. That's what your brain is. It's a scheming device. And yeah, things that could scheme had an advantage over things that weren't too good at scheming. That's why we have it.
It has to do with, again, an openness in love and compassion.
Alright, there we go. What the fuck is that? An openness in love and compassion. An openness in love and compassion. Love is just bigotry, so I don't know what that means. Compassion how? I feel your pain, and I will now ignore it and cause more of it? Is that what compassion is? Compassion is, oh, you're suffering? Well, too bad. That's, it's part of the order. Don't complain. It's part of the order. The grand order ordered it. Yeah. So you have to just accept it, that and eat that. Fuck you. Yeah, that's compassion. So you're a bigoted glibist at best. Bigotry and glib. With bigotry and glibosity, let us march forward, stomping, stomp, stomp. Fucky fuck, eek, eek. Eek, eek. Eek, eek, eek. Eek.
To what is this fateful occurrence?
What is it? So again, he's sitting there at the scene of the fucking Holocaust and going, what is this? Where did we come from? Who cares, fuckhead? We know what it's made out of. DNA molecules replicating. Carnage. One winner, lots of losers. Stupid system. Insufficiently efficient.
That happened. I don't think there was a conscious design, or there was no
A little jump cut in there. That was kind of I didn't notice that before. A little jump cut.
being that brought life into being.
Yes, okay, so he says you. So again, you don't want to make the argument defending that position. You just say it, but you're basically saying there's no being, but we don't need a being. We just need order. And so then we'll just go order, orders. Here are the orders from the order. You must obey the orders that come down from the order. Yeah, the order has ordered you to complete these orders. Shit, and that's so much better than God says so, isn't it? Oh yeah, that's so much better. No, it isn't. It sucks.
Actual orderliness of the
So let's just replace in all his videos, we'll just take the word orderliness and just replace it with God. The natural God says so.
Cosmos precipitates out life, and
The natural order, the God gave birth to life. Oh, that sounds just like religion.
this is the situation we find ourselves in. The question is how best to negotiate and manage that.
Yes, the question is, there's a wreck, there's burning flesh, there's horror everywhere. Should we go ahead, send some more people in there? There's a door, right? Things walk through the door and you see you know, hunks of flesh hit the window on the door. You know, you hear screams and yells and horrors and all kinds of shit and tumors and all kinds of stuff is flying against the door, right? And so there's some more people, and you just say, yeah, go ahead. It looks like it's interesting in there. Fuck. There's order in there. There's an ordered pattern to the blobs of brain hitting the fucking window. Yeah, it comes in an ordered routine. Person goes in, brain goes out. Yeah, ooh, it's really cool. No, it isn't.
And this is where I think this, the David Abrams stuff really starts to come home. So,
yeah, sappy, silly, the sensual universe. Rubby, rubby, ah, ah.
Abram is giving a
kind of preposterously silly description of silly people and saying, let's all just be silly, because silly is fun. Let's all put on a skirt and feel the wind on our nuts.
natural account of early oral peoples and of what happened with alphabetacy and the origin of alphabetic writing. And he's tracing it to a certain Semitic people that then carried it over to the Greeks. And
yeah, they carried it over with a big sword. You know, that's how all this stuff gets carried around. Is it basically you stab the people that existed and then you body snatch. You know, you steal their clothes and wear them and say, "Oh, we're Greek now." Yeah, got it.
What's sort of interesting in this is that in the Western world, science and religion properly understood. I mean, organized, proper science and religion, organized and properly understood, they both begin with alphabetacy. They begin.
Oh, fuck this shit, right? I mean, this is just, no. They begin with the idea of properties and categories. They begin with identifying things and labeling them with a word. It doesn't matter whether it's alphabetical. The Chinese do fine. The Japanese do fine. They don't have no fucking alphabet. Ugh, this is just such crap.
With writing. They begin with writing. Now, maybe not alphabetacy. We could get to certain kinds of.
Yeah, right. Words are, identifiers, and yeah, that's pretty much all they are, is identifiers, right? They're properties and categories,
Egyptian forms of religion, clearly, that were, you have pre-alphabetic forms, if I could use that expression.
Yeah, no, I think it's just crap to call it an alphabet. It just is crap, okay? They had a symbolic language. So they used symbols to represent concepts and properties. Not complicated.
But I mean, the alphabet was created, discovered, however you want to shake it out, once, and from there it just spread.
Well, there you go again. Yeah, it spread how? Again, the how part, right? It didn't spread just because everybody said, oh yeah, let's talk English. No, it's, because we annihilated the previous cultures.
And
I mean, look, the Egyptians were so thoroughly defeated that there was nobody left that could read hieroglyphics. One for the Rosetta Stone and some other things. I mean, it was just an amazing annihilation of a gigantic civilization.
The task is to be able to understand what exactly happened with alphabetacy and how the spell of the sensuous, the
spell of the sensuous. I mean, that's supposed to have something to do with philosophy. Oh. What makes you horny? Blah, 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 blah.
Sensuous world as a present that spoke to people, that communicated to people, was destabilized and dislocated by alphabetacy. Now,
what did he just say? Fuck.
Okay, so let's see if I can get at some of this. Okay, part of the problem is that.
Well, I haven't watched this part, so I guess I'll just wait. Oh, God. I mean, it's an hour, so, the camera's going to end any minute. Second. So, yeah, this is just so irritating. There's nothing to defend in religion or spirituality. It's It's a self-indulgence. It's an indulgence of your psychology, of your fear, of your inadequacy, of your ego, of a lot of things. But it's an indulgence. It's like any other addiction. You don't sit there and rationalize baseball as fundamental to human character and blah blah. You don't make exaggerated statements for what it is. It's a silly entertainment device. Alright, that's all it is. A form of entertainment. Okay, and it's a rather ignorant and useless form of entertainment that has no redeeming value whatsoever, in the sense that it doesn't provide any kind of life lessons, and it doesn't provide of much. And it certainly doesn't edify in any way. It doesn't teach people much physics. They still don't understand crap. So what is it? There's no value there. So why are you projecting this necessity to hold a reverence for absolutely self-indulgent psychological rubbish and calling it something that should be meaningful or relevant or substantive or anything to somebody with a thinking, inquiring mind? Because it's not. It's just crap. Alright, so I think that's enough of a video.